Because short stories are short, you do not want too many secondary characters. But secondary characters are still a vital, important part of a story. Every story needs other characters. A few suggestions for other characters, for secondary characters, would be to have something like a sidekick. Many stories have an effective sidekick. It changes the story. It gives the main story another side to it. If you think of a movie like Shrek, which has Donkey, you have a comedic sidekick, which really enhances the story. Another one that many stories have is a mentor. You see this in movies like Star Wars, where he has Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Yoda. In Lord of the Rings, you have Gandalf, generally an older person who's there to help the young hero. Another one is a villain. Many stories, most stories, have a villain. This gives you a problem that needs to be solved, someone that needs to be defeated, which is often helpful for your story. And I would suggest after that, you'd only have one or two other random people that your character might meet along the way. This could be friends they have before the story starts, or other people they meet. It could be someone who helps them, gives them directions, whatever it would be. That would be the number of characters I would suggest. I have room for 5 secondary characters in my page here, and I would suggest that if you use up to 3 or 4, you are doing all right, although feel free to use all 5. When thinking about secondary characters, it's often important to think, who do I need in the story to make the story work? So if I think about my problem, I already know I need to have the king. In my story, the problem is that the king is kidnapped by a dragon, and right there I have a second character. This is my villain. Before I go too much further, I want to start describing who these people are. So in my story, I have an elvish king who is kidnapped, and I'm thinking, well, why would the dragons want to kidnap this king? And I'm thinking probably because he's wise. He's effectively ruled, and the dragons don't want him ruling anything more. Although this king is wise, he's going to have a bit of a conflict with my main character, who loves words and their definitions, just because he despises definitions. We could see where that could cause problems with his wisdom, but to try and define all words will just frustrate him, so he's going to despise that. Another thing I'm going to see from him is he's clever. This is just a few characteristics, not nearly to the extent that my main character had, but at least now I can go into the story knowing what this king is like. For the dragon, I'm going to make him a fairly normal dragon. Many stories have dragons. In a short story, I don't want to have to describe and define too many differences between my dragon and other dragons, so I'll have him breathe fire. One thing many dragons can do is they can talk, not all, so I want to certainly define that. I have a talking dragon. He will be able to converse with the king or the hero. He's also going to be a red dragon, so I can at least know what he looks like. So now I have not really a sidekick, but a secondary character, someone who needs to be saved. I have a dragon who's the villain. I'm going to want a sidekick in my story, and I think an effective sidekick would be the princess. So this will be the daughter of the king. She's going to take along with her hero for the time. She is going to be pretty, like many princesses are. Also arrogant, confident in her own abilities, very athletic, so help her keep up and possibly put our hero to shame at times. Despite this, she will be short. I'm going to give her curly red hair to have some physical description in there, and then I'm going to have her love puns. You see, with the king and the princess, both have things that are opposite of our hero, which could create some fun, if small, conflict in our story. For the next character, I think a mentor would be nice. I could have used the king as a mentor for my knight, but I'm choosing to have a different one. So I'm going to take an old knight, who would be training our hero. For the old knight, to give him a few definitions, just make him grouchy. He's going to be mean, but also very smart. And he's going to be very old. I mentioned that already in his name, Old Knight. But I'm going to make him very old. So he's probably going to be slow, hard to move, joints will hurt. He's the old guard, the great knight of the past, but he's old. And thinking about my main character and some of his strangeness, I think there would be possibly other squires who would be the ones to tease our character. So these other squires as a whole, obviously there would be multiple squires. I'm just going to put them all in one group. The story will do the same. They will be mean, yet they will be capable. And where our hero is brave to the point of being foolhardy, these other squires will be cautious, which is likely why our hero is the one going after the dragon to save the king and not the other squires. So here's 5 secondary characters that I will be using in my story. It's always important to remember with your secondary characters, what part of the story will they be playing. If they don't have a part to play in the story, then they're not worth having in your story. Short stories are too short to have side plots. You need to have these characters fit into the main plot.